Joining us on the journey today is the 109th Mayor of New York City. Please welcome to the journey, Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Come on, put your hands together for our mayor. Listen, I'm gonna get right into it. A lot of people have been asking me about this plan to close Rikers, and it has caused a lot of buzz and created a lot of buzz in the community. Why is closing Rikers important for you?
I don't need to tell anyone here a culture of mass incarceration was created over decades that fundamentally undermines our nation, our cities, our families, and it has to be broken. The point about closing Rikers is that it says, not only to the city, but to the nation, we are leaving the era of mass incarceration behind.
Yeah.
And I say very clearly, we didn't start mass incarceration here in New York City, but we will end it here. We will be the example.
Absolutely.
We need to close it. Then that means we stay focused on driving down crime, because if you're driving down crime, you're not arresting people. If you're not arresting people, they're not going to jail. Period. Right? We're going to the root causes. Neighborhood policing, bringing police and community together so that we can actually stop crime before it happens because of a partnership between police and community. Going at the root causes, going at education, affordable housing, jobs, the things that make a difference. If you do all these things, fewer and fewer people will be incarcerated. And it keeps us focused on where we need to go. Here's the bottom line. We need to cut our jail population in half. That's what allows us to close Rikers. So we need to be laser focused that we want nobody going to jail who doesn't have to go to jail.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
You know, it's so funny. I was reading a few years ago and more recently, in our country, there are more people in solitary confinement than all of the people in prison in the UK.
That's right.
We have to process that. We are intoxicated with incarceration in this country.
Yeah. And the worst kind, too, because this is a point about solitary. I imagine everyone knows the extraordinarily painful story of Khalif Browder. And that young man did not need to die, to say the least, but I'll tell you something, talk about someone who did not die in vain. His story animated so much of the energy to finally focus on closing Rikers.
Yeah.
But there were so many horrible points of that story, but the part that was the worst was a young man just trying to get justice that kept eluding him, and he ended up, because he spoke up, he ended up in solitary. Well, I'm proud to say, while we're on the bigger mission of closing Rikers, we ended solitary for young people at Rikers. We've ended it altogether.
Good.
It does not exist anymore.
Good. And help me, did you also establish that we wouldn't have 16-year-olds at Rikers either anymore? Good.
16 and 17-year-olds will be off Rikers by the end of next year, and we've been steadily taking them off. But no one, if you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, no more solitary confinement, period.
Excellent.
Period.
And that goes almost hand in hand with the raise the age fight. I know I've been fighting for years and been part of that movement.
And that movement succeeded, and I congratulate you and everyone who's part of that. And we finally became, there were 2 states left in the country and got there. So anytime people like to tell you about the glory of progressive New York State has still got a lot of work to do. And we finally got there on raise the age. We got a lot more to do beyond that.
Yeah, you know, I've been, I don't know, blessed or fortunate, however you want to do it. And I've lived in both states, you know, North Carolina and New York. But to think about it, as you said, we always laud the progressiveness of this state, and yet New York and North Carolina were the 2 states that were still treating 16-year-olds and as adults. And so that's insane. What do you think we need to do in order, like not just in the city, but in our nation, to guarantee successful re-entry for those who are coming out of
Here's a question. Do you believe in redemption?
Absolutely, yeah.
If you believe in redemption, then you don't say if someone got in trouble once, then they're going to be a hardened criminal and it's all over. You recognize people get in trouble for a lot of reasons. People make mistakes. Young people still developing their minds and their hearts sometimes especially make mistakes. Our mission is from the first time, God forbid they make a mistake, to start talking right away about how that's going to be the last time. And it's really important. So now we put a reform plan together. We say when someone walks in the door of Rikers, the very first day they sit down with a reentry specialist who starts discussion on the first day of how you're going to go back into society, how we're going to help you get it right. And the message on day one is this is the last time you're ever going to be here. Yeah. And that's the way we have to approach it.
Yeah.
This is what was the foundation of the mass incarceration dynamic. A demonization of people, and that was obviously first and foremost a demonization of young men of color, and then a creation of the notion that if you did something wrong, you were already a hardened criminal. And then the ironies, by keeping people in a setting of incarceration, we turned some people who were absolutely redeemable into hardened criminals, right? Yeah. It's backwards. Most people make a mistake. They made a mistake, and they don't want to live that life. And they can be brought back to a better path. The younger, the more chance we have to turn them around. So that's why our message is, if you see this inside the jail cell once, let's all assume it's going to be the last time. Let's work from that assumption. Not that you're a hardened criminal, you're someone who went astray. But if we all work together, you can get back on a positive path. We flip the script.
Yeah, yeah.
This city, before 3 years ago when we came in, the average inmate on Rikers Island got less than an hour a day of education and training while they were in Rikers. Less than an hour a day. Here was a chance to do something that had not been done before. A lot of young people were there in particular because their education had failed them. We created a new policy. We said, every weekday, whatever you're in there for however long you are there, you will get 5 hours of education and training every single day.
Wow.
And then one more point, some people are there awaiting trial, some people have been sentenced to a term of up to 1 year. That's why you would be in Rikers for a sentence, otherwise you'd be upstate. If you're in Rikers and you've been sentenced, we have now put a guarantee in place. You are guaranteed upon finishing your sentence and leaving Rikers, you're guaranteed a transitional job. The city of New York will provide that job.
Once you finish your sentence.
You finish your sentence, you come out, you get a transitional job because we have found, and it's been proven, it maximizes your chance of getting to long-term employment. It reduces the chance of recidivism. Now, Pastor Mike, I hope you're sitting down. A tabloid newspaper whose title rhymes with the word toast. They said, by putting this policy in place, I was providing jobs for criminals. I say I am helping people redeem themselves and never go back to jail again.
Yes, absolutely. You know, that on many levels, that frustrates me because we often talk about people needing another chance, or those of us who are believers talk about we serve a God of another chance. And yet, the attitudes by some people who claim to be believers in God towards people who've made mistakes is amazing to me. Amen. That if you've made a mistake in life, that should not follow you the rest of your days. That there's always the opportunity to turn it around and to change your life. And so being able to create, I think, an environment where that individual is not dehumanized or looked as upon someone who is a problematic for our society, but giving them an opportunity is a tremendous gift.
When we announced those reforms I just mentioned, we were at the Fortune Society, which does amazing work helping those who have been incarcerated. And everyone who spoke, who was an official of the Fortune Society, who were impressive change agents, who were turning lives around, well, guess what? Every single one of them had once upon a time been incarcerated themselves, right? So they came out, and they're doing things that all of us could only dream of in terms of the impact they're having on human lives around them.
Before we wrap up, so I've already heard a lot of pushback, you know, from communities because it saddens me. I remember when you talked about wanting to build more shelters, and there were some people in houses of worship, in churches, who were protesting against the idea of providing shelter near their church. Right, for the homeless, which blew my mind, which let me know that there are people who only, I think, in language practice this faith, but not in practice, right?
Amen.
What has been some of the pushback with regard to the possibility of closing Rikers, and how do you begin to move to deal with it? How do you anticipate some of that?
You're right on point. Look, for this to work, to get out of Rikers, there will be community-based facilities so that instead of everyone being sent off to Rikers, and again, this would be a much smaller jail system, but there will be some community-based facilities. We need to work with communities to create those. Now, I will be very clear. A lot of members of City Council come forward and say, we want to work to make that happen because we really believe Rikers is wrong and we want it to end, and we know we need some additional facilities. So we're going to work together. But people have to think about the big picture of our city and where we're going, but they also have to think about the humanity. We are trying to redeem people, help us redeem people, and it is for the good of all. Every redeemed person becomes a productive member of society again. Isn't that what we aspire to?
Absolutely, yes, yes, yes. No, I think it says something, to the idea. I mean, if we are going to be committed to transforming lives, and that's really the role, I think, of every human being in some way, to be able to sharpen, to pour into another human being, to help them reach their full potential and to be their better selves, we have to then create mechanisms to ensure that that happens. And I think, and I applaud the efforts not only of the activists who've been wanting to see Rikers closed, but now to see the actual elected officials and yourself spearhead this, being supportive of this effort, because it has to be, I think, multi-layered, and many people have to be involved, not just you, not just City Council, but the DA, and in local communities, because we have to be able to create spaces for those who return.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And we have to have a welcoming society. Look, there is no illusion about the challenges, and undoing centuries of social ills and how that's affected families and how that's affected people's lives. Well, no one's saying this is easy. We are saying we need a sense of mission. We need a sense of mission that says, rather than what we did for decades in this country, which is literally determine someone to be having no worth. This is what mass incarceration was, taking away human worth and human value and closing off the possibilities. Flip it over and say, we believe, maybe there's a few folks who go astray and never come back, but we believe most people can be brought back. And we have to have that urgency that we're going to reach for every single person to bring them back and get them on the right track. It's as simple as that. It has to be all our mission.
This is our mayor. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.